Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here with us today. My name is Lydia Boss, and I'm here with my co-program manager, Luther Hughes, and we're very happy to be here with you for Ready and Resilient, tips and resources for your artistic career. This program is part of Artist Trust Readiness and Resilient workshop series, and we have presented this over the past 6 months in partnership with CERF Plus, the Artist Safety Net, and with funding from the Andrew W. Mellon Foundation. So we're really thrilled to have you all here, thrilled for those partnerships and for that support. And with that, we would like to begin with our land and labor acknowledgements.
So first, our land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that we do statewide work, and that work is on land stolen from Native and Indigenous people. Our office is on Duwamish land. I too am currently on Duwamish land and recognize that they were the first people here and were forced to move. Understanding our place in history and understanding how we can better support Indigenous communities is, of course, ongoing and very, very important work.
And for our labor acknowledgement, we acknowledge that we benefit from the prosperity of the United States, which was built on the labor of enslaved people. Please join us in expressing our deepest respect and gratitude for the descendants of those who built this country.
Cool. Lydia, do you want to?
You read my mind. Yeah, can I share my screen?
Go for it.
Okay, great. Can everybody see this okay? Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you.
So what is Artist Trust? So we are a not-for-profit organization whose sole mission is to support and encourage individual artists working in all disciplines in order to enrich community life throughout Washington state. We were founded in 1986 with awards going out in 1987. We serve artists of all disciplines across the state with grants and other professional development opportunities. And artists are really at the center of our work. And as Lydia said, this workshop is the final in our program series in partnership with CERF Plus and the Andrew W. Mellon Foundation. So that's who we are and what we're kind of about.
So we thought that it would be nice to actually begin our time together today with a little discussion about why readiness and resilience is important to us as individuals. This can be varying for each of us who's here today. We've been in a pandemic for the past 2 years, and I think that the pandemic has really shown all of us how important it is to be prepared, especially as artists. And again, that preparedness looks differently to each of us, but we wanted to start with sort of a check-in with all of you, right? Like, emergencies don't happen in a bubble. And during the pandemic, we've definitely had natural disasters, political and social disasters, as well as individual and personal disasters, right? So being ready and being prepared can definitely help you to be resilient in the face of emergency. And talking about this can really help you to cover all of your bases as an artist, and you know, different aspects of your career and also your finances, which we're going to touch on today. So protecting yourself and your art business. We're going to dive into some tips for protecting yourself and your work.
So the first is, cataloging your artwork and why it's necessary to catalog your artwork. And you just never know what may happen in the midst of things, right? And so it's important to have just a catalog or an archive of your artwork, just in case something does happen to either, your space, the environment, financial situation, what have you. Earthquakes happen, fires happen, there could be water damage, right? We can have to move places. So cataloging your artwork is very, very important. Archiving is very important for it, just to, cover all bases and boundaries. Also, cataloging your artwork can make things easily accessible when applying for grants or fellowship, or showing other fellow artists or anyone who's interested in seeing your artwork, right? You can pull it up quickly or just find it quickly. So it makes it easily accessible to kind of see and look and share. Technology is growing rapidly and every day, and so it's important to have an archive because of the way technology is rapidly growing and changing. Even from the last 2 years, right? We're all Zoom experts now because of the pandemic, and we weren't that 2 years ago, right? And so really being up on technology and up on what does it mean to archive and catalog your work. And you can do that by having external hard drives and thumb drives, which are excellent ways to keep extras or large file sizes. It's also a great way to just back up files, just have an extra set of places to have the same files that you keep other places. Use cloud-like servers like Google Drive, Dropbox, Apple Cloud, and those other servers that, provide an internet or a cloud-like way to kind of store and catalog and archive your work. And again, think of it as a backup, right? Have, your thing on your computer, have it on that thumb drive and have it in that cloud. And the cloud is accessible anywhere, usually on your phone, any kind of computer that has internet access is always going to be there for you to kind of use and have that there. And most cloud servers have a small fee to increase your size for things. For artists and visual artists and performing artists might have larger files for certain things. And so pay that little small fee to have that extra storage for you to have the backup and archiving your work. Social media is a great way to also archive your work. Those who are, again, visual artists or even performing artists can use places like YouTube or Instagram or Tumblr and Twitch as a way to kind of archive your work and also create a cool little aesthetic for your work and your artistry, right? And so, again, Instagram is a good way for you to have that kind of there as archive to look back to, kind of save. Also provide a little personality, a little aesthetic to your artwork. So it can be kind of a twofold, a two birds in one stone thing.
So creating a financial safety net, and I mean, this is something that we're continuing to learn about. I'm not going to claim to be an expert, a finance expert, but this does seem to be a topic that maybe we can crowdsource some information together about. But basically, something that we see as being important to being ready and resilient is creating a financial safety net for yourself. And creating this safety net can be a really good way to begin with that is just to kind of create a very fundamental financial plan. It can be really easy, or it can be as easy as just kind of noting how much money you want to save every month on a piece of paper, or as elaborate as, maybe even meeting with an accountant or something in between, like creating a personalized budget from a template that you find online. An important part of creating a financial safety net and a little plan for yourself is to remember to be flexible. I think that I speak for maybe all of us when we say that there are a lot of unknowns right now in our financial picture. And that can be said for artists of all disciplines, right? Especially over the past 2 years. So remember to be kind to yourself and kind of build that flexibility into your plan. I think that setting aside money can be a really good way to begin to take steps toward more financial security. And of course, this means different things to different people. Depending on where you're at, maybe your goal is setting aside $5 or $10 a month. And from there, you allow that safety net to grow. No amount is too small. And we definitely encourage you to just start somewhere with an amount that's comfortable to you. Using a budgeting app like You Need a Budget or Digit. These are wonderful apps that, sit right on your phone and you can have them in your pocket. And these are great tools that can help you to track your spending and your saving. And again, you can even use an app like Excel, which is on most computers, or Google Sheets is also available for free through a Gmail account. I also think that talking with other artists about navigating COVID and finances and other emergencies as well, but being open to having these discussions with our peers and people that we trust. I think that talking about money is really hard. But if you have folks in your network that you do trust to have these conversations with, I think that it can be an important step, and also could be a great way for us to share resources and be able to support one another through financial uncertainty.
And there's some other ways to kind of, help you be more confident in your art career and your quote unquote business, is this idea of setting up an LLC. I am not and nowhere near an LLC professional or specialist, but there's just some ideas in thinking about how to approach an LLC and why getting an LLC for your art and your artwork and your art business might be beneficial to you. So an LLC is just a limited liable company, clearly outlines who's liable for what and defines ownership. And it helps define partnerships between people, you and yourself, you and another org, you and other artists, and interest in relation to your artwork and or those projects. Several grants and fiscal sponsorship opportunities kind of also require LLC. So having an LLC beforehand, before applying for a grant or a fellowship or other certain type of opportunities, allows you to get kind of ahead of the game when thinking about those things. So having an LLC can kind of position you to be prepared for those type of opportunities coming up. Also, LLC helps you define responsibilities, which ultimately means less stress on all parties. So some benefits of having an LLC, besides what I just said, you can kind of come off a little more professional in having an LLC. It makes you feel a little bit better. People are kind of impressed by that. And it kind of streamlines a lot of processes and conversation when having an LLC when it comes to business partners or partnerships and things like that. Again, a lot of places might require an LLC, so put you ahead of the game when thinking about opportunities when it relates to professionalism or benefits or things like that. And again, it can streamline like meetings and projects when thinking about partnerships and who's responsible for what and who owns what and things like that. And so again, not really saying get one, but begin thinking about how it can benefit you and being prepared for what may happen later on.
So another aspect about kind of being ready as an artist and as an arts business person, quote unquote, has to do a little bit with having some knowledge about contracts and agreements. So primarily, what is a contract? A contract is a legally binding agreement between two or more parties that outlines the roles and responsibilities of each party. So that's a really broad definition, but you can apply that to any type of work that you may be engaging in or may be interested in participating in. So there are multiple kinds of contracts, and sort of thinking more formally, a licensing agreement is one which outlines who and how long a party can use a brand, a product, or a service. And this can certainly help you to protect your assets, your creative assets, if you are licensing them to another party. So work made for hire, again, is another type of contract that as an artist you might want to be familiar with or kind of know about in the back of your head. And this is an agreement which is between an employer and a contractor outlining scope of work. So this can be applied, I think, in the visual arts quite a bit. If you've ever heard of an artist who, let's say, is like super famous, and then you like find out that like, this person didn't even like paint they didn't even paint this work. It's like, okay, well, that's because they have a team of people that they hire to work in their studio or their workshop. So those folks likely have a contract with their employees that's a work for hire contract that clearly outlines sort of the nature of their work together. So that way there's no ambiguity about who owns what. And at the end of the day, there's like a very clear line about whose work the finished product is. Also a publishing contract or agreement, which is an agreement that your work can be published on a media-based platform. So something like online, in a journal, a magazine, or even a newspaper. And this outlines the terms of the publication agreement. So those are some more formal examples of contracts that might be important to you as a creative and that can help you to protect yourself in your creative pursuits. Also, contracts can be more informal. Basically, any signed agreement between two people outlining the details of certain work together or a project. Sometimes, contracts can even be verbal. And so it just depends on the nature of the work that you're pursuing and how you feel it's best to protect yourself and your creative assets. The best way to begin with a contract is to begin by using a template. And Google is definitely your best friend if you're looking for contract templates. The internet is full of different resources. If you'd like to research tools, you can find easily editable templates that are free online or even in Microsoft Word. There are a number of contract templates that are available to you, which is pretty great. You can also ask fellow artists for advice and insight into creating contracts that might be best suited to you for your project and the artwork that you are hoping to pursue.
So protecting yourself with insurance, there are a number of different types of insurance that can help you as an artist, as an individual in general. That helps you be prepared and ready and resilient. And so the first one would be like renter's insurance for your home or your studio. So looking into renter's insurance for your home or studio or art space is important. It can cover a lot of things as far as your artwork, the space, upkeep, things like that. And even if you don't have a studio, maybe even if you just do artwork in your home, it's important to have that renter's insurance to cover those things in your home down to your artwork and supplies. Even those who are writers should have renter's insurance in their space because they are working in their space as well. And so think of it as more so than just your studio. Think of it also renter's insurance for your home, which might include a lot of the way you're working as an artist, art supplies and things like that. Business insurance as well as the limited liability insurance is great and important for artists. It protects different financial interests of yourself and your business, just in case you come up against any lawsuits or any third-party claims or other legal things that make you feel like kind of icky and like what's going on. So having those things is also important as an artist. And again, as an individual, just to kind of protect yourself against those claims or other legalities. And then health insurance, as we know, can be a very overwhelming topic, but it's good to have for artists who are using their bodies to complete artwork, like dancers or actors, or even like Lydia said, glass blowers. And so health insurance can provide by the state can be basic necessities like pharmaceutical services or dental services, recovery, what have you, things like that. And so having health insurance, even basic ones from the state, is beneficial, especially if you're an artist using your body in very strenuous ways.
So we also wanted to talk a little bit about setting yourself up for protection and safety and security in the case of a natural disaster. And I wouldn't necessarily call Washington State like a hotbed for natural disasters, but we do have a lot of different sort of geographic elements and like topographical regions. And the types of natural disasters that could potentially impact you as a Washingtonian are pretty vast. Things ranging from wildfires to floods, severe storms, including wind, landslides, earthquakes, tsunamis for the folks living out on the coast or on the peninsula, drought, in particular parts of the state, and also volcanic eruption. So obviously, we don't know, we can't predict if and when some of these things are going to happen. But if you would like to set yourself and your studio and your art practice up for if you want to try to be prepared for any of these things, we do have a couple of recommendations. I think primarily it's important to assess your space, both your personal and your home space, as well as your studio. We actually have a great workshop recording on risk assessment taught by artist Fumi Amano on our website. And this is definitely an excellent tool when thinking about, okay, I need to assess my space. If my artwork is really fragile, do I have it, in a location where it could be potentially protected, or in like a earthquake-proof room if a quake were to strike tomorrow, or something like that? Like if you just have sort of all of your creations out in the middle of your room, like really kind of taking into account, okay, if there were to be a natural disaster in my area, how could I protect my work if your finished work is like a physical object? So assessing the space that you're occupying and trying to set yourself up to be as prepared as possible if something unknown like a flood or an earthquake were to happen. Making a disaster supply kit with very basic necessities like water, snacks, bandages, just like very general sort of first aid supplies. We really can't recommend this enough. I definitely have had a first aid kit and some like necessities like extra water at our studio. And I think that that's something that helps me to feel a little bit more secure about, okay, if I were to be here when something were to happen, would I have some of the essentials that I would need in order to be safe and healthy for at least a couple of days? We definitely recommend creating a small to-go bag that you can easily take with you in the event of an emergency, both at home and at your studio space if that's separate from your home. Also, knowing where to go in case something were to happen, creating a plan for yourself and plan exit routes from your home and your studio. Also, there are sort of like pre-identified safe spaces or safe, God, the term is escaping me, but like pre-identified areas where community is meant to meet in case of a natural disaster. So learning what those are for you in your region and making a plan of how you would get there should something come up. That can also be a really great way to identify sort of a meeting place with loved ones where you know there's going to be help and resources potentially available. If you are able and interested in creating a plan like this, write it down with your loved ones, practice it, and have it as something that maybe you revisit annually and update and kind of keep up to date as your life and practice continue to evolve.
And then just some overall encouragement and some tips to being ready and resilient. And one is build a network around you that is not just artists, but other community members. I think it'd be easy for all of us as artists to just fall in the same community, but of course, the humankind is more than just artists. And so for sure, build a network that is more than just artists and other people in your community, even your neighbors or people who you see walking your dog or things like that. So build that community within your own network to kind of be ready and resilient to help each other and get help and provide help. Talk to your community. Not sure where to start, talk with your peers and other people you trust. Your peers and colleagues are probably going through a similar thing that you're going through and have similar questions. And so for sure, lean on them and be a shoulder for them to lean on as well to kind of build that trust and understanding with each other. Peer-to-peer support is probably one of the best support you can probably get because again, you're there together in the trenches, quote unquote, together, going through similar things and problem situations. Like we mentioned, when it comes to creating a plan, you must practice so that plan becomes second nature. it seems a little cheesy to like practice like an escape route or practice like a fake emergency like we may have done in elementary school, but when things happen, we're prepared and ready. And so of course, for sure, practice that plan and make it familiar to your day-to-day like ideologies in life. Building resilience takes time and can be overwhelming. So take it one step at a time. There's no need to rush into it. There's no need to feel overwhelmed. Take it by small bites, maybe think about it once a week, once a month, things like that. Take it as you can and make it comfortable for yourself to start doing these things and being ready and resilient. And do your research, which can also be overwhelming, but again, you have to start somewhere. And just by Googling simple things like artist contract template, you are already preparing yourself in small ways. And so take small steps, take small bites, but do your research when it comes to being prepared and ready in all these different aspects and fields. Um, and I guess before we continue on with some, other general resources, Lydia, can you start sharing your screen for a second? Would love to like talk to you all again about, what are some other ways you're thinking about readiness and resiliency and or, implemented readiness and resiliency into your artwork or your day-to-day lives. And so feel free to come off the camera, feel free to come off mute and kind of talk about, what are ways you're thinking of readiness and resiliency and preparedness in your art and your day-to-day kind of lives as an artist.
So just kind of addressing some general resources that we thought might be helpful for y'all to kind of know about. Washington Lawyers for the Arts is an organization, and they actually provide 30-minute free consultations for artists. Obviously, if you need deeper engagement or you have a question that is going to be more like multiple meetings to answer, there will be a fee, but it's pretty cool that they provide that first 30-minute consultation for free. And we've worked with their organization for years, just sort of in like a peripheral or like loose partnership. And they really genuinely care about artists and are generally very versed in, like laws and like some of the legality about legalities of what it means to be an artist working in Washington State. So definitely a good resource for all of us. The Tenant Renters Union is a really good resource to help you think about your rights as a tenant if you are renting a space and you're not owning it. We, as an artist trust, we have a statewide food bank map locator on our website, and that can be really useful to you as an individual, or it's easy to share if you know someone who is experiencing food scarcity and needs a little bit of support from their community. We do have a food bank map available. We also have an income loss calculator available on our website. And this is something that we created at the beginning of COVID because a lot of relief funds were asking individuals to calculate how much money they had lost in order to be able to apply for funding. So we made a really practical, really straightforward spreadsheet for you to be able to use as a template, and you just kind of get in there, do your thing, and hopefully it easily provides you with a number that you can use to more confidently apply for that relief funding. Washington Apple Health Insurance. It's a statewide health insurance, and basically you can provide, you can get yourself insured for very basic needs, or you can invest in more substantial health insurance depending on kind of where you're at as an individual. I've been on Washington Apple in the past before I worked at Artist Trust, and although the database is frustrating to navigate, having the knowledge that I am insured, that I have health insurance, that brought me a lot of peace of mind, and is something that we absolutely would recommend for each of you if you don't already. MyZone.com can help you to know more about natural disasters that could impact your community. And they also provide escape and safety routes to those pre-identified safe community spaces that you could go to in case of a natural disaster. Ready.gov is sort of a similar resource that can help you with planning for a natural disaster and emergencies. It includes resources to help you make a plan, tips for building your kit, your sort of emergency kit for both you and your children if you're living with children, and also signing up for emergency alerts, which can be extremely useful. Also, cdc.gov is an excellent resource for staying updated on the current pandemic, recommended safety regulations, overall guidelines, as well as addressing other health-related factors and emergencies. And we also have an abundance of resources at artisttrust.org on our resources page that we hope you might consider exploring.
And this is just our contact information. If you're going to reach out and talk more about what does it mean to be prepared and ready and resilient, Lydia is there, I'm there, and Grace Nakahara, who is Artist Trust Program Coordinator and kind of like our on-site expert when it comes to being prepared and being ready. And so all three of us are there to kind of help you out if you're going to continue talking about this type of thing, and also just maybe share resources yourself to us so we can share to the community. And so we also share that information with you in an email after all of this as well.
I'm sorry, I clicked. I didn't mean to. I advanced the slide by accident.
It's cool. Also, I would say, of course, check out our website. Also, friend us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and it's just Artist Trust for all of those platforms. We have a few minutes left, and so, like I said, there were questions in the chat that I will read aloud and hopefully we can address for you all. So for external drive storage, do you recommend lower disk space or a larger hard drive in case of disk corruption? What type of digital storage space do you recommend? Also, what type of files do you recommend for the digital archive?
So I think, it depends on what your art practice is. If you're a visual artist, I would recommend 300 DPI JPEG, sort of at the least. Some storage, some external hard drives have the capacity to take on much larger files than that. And again, it just depends on who you are and what type of work you make. Let me read the start of this question again to make sure I'm. I mean, I would definitely recommend a larger hard drive, but maybe somebody else on the call here today has a different perspective on that. But it would be my instinct to go with the larger hard drive.
Yeah, I think like Lydia said, it just depends on your art. Like again, like for visual artists and performing artists, if you're storing like videos of yourself or performances, for sure, like a much larger hard drive up to kind of like hold those larger files. If you're like me and a writer, I don't really need a large hard drive. I've been having the same thumb drive, I think since like 2015. And so I'm just storing like, like writing and other like related like contracts and things. So I don't need like a large hard drive or external drive. But the thumb drive usually is enough for me because again, it's more documents versus like large JPEGs or large like video files and things like that. When it comes to like digital archiving, Google Drive is pretty amazing. They have a really large space. I will say, as a writer using Google Drive, I did have to invest in the larger space at some point, and so it does have limits. But also, I also do know that Dropbox also has a very large size. You can use that as well. And I think more folks who are visual and who work in video or has videos use Dropbox over Google Drive because of the larger file size space for Dropbox. So again, depends on your artwork and just kind of do that research and ask other artists in your field what they're using as far as external drive and archiving.
Yeah, I was the one who asked this question. I'm sorry, this is William again. I asked this question because I realized that when I was using a bigger hard drive and I had to pull file out, I would have to upload 6,000 pictures or some crazy amount, which takes forever. And then I just needed like 20 or something for something I needed to do. And so I was realizing that I was probably investing all my eggs in one basket, and that was probably not a good thing. And also I was thinking maybe I should do smaller or like a backup one. I could have one that has like 8 GB for like 20 pictures to 30, and then the other ones will be in a larger for backup just in case the backup fails or something. I don't know. I was just worried about that. And then with the digital like cloud service, I used to have initially Verizon Cloud, and when you change services, your stuff kind of get lost, and this is like really a pain. And I'm not sure whether Google, when hopefully Google will be around for a very long time, or any other drive is going to be able to save your stuff. And I don't know whether it gets lost somewhere, or I'm not sure. I just worry about these kind of thing I can't see. So that's why I asked the question. I was just wondering what people thought about that.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I think that going with that external is definitely more secure in my eyes than going with the digital. But like you said, maybe, depending on what you're doing, you have to kind of reevaluate, what's going to be the most practical for you. The next question that we have here is, what kind of grants require LLC for individual artists? And Luther might have more context to this than I do, but something that I'm familiar with is fiscal sponsorship. Sometimes if you're looking for a fiscal sponsorship grant, they may require you to be a registered LLC in order to complete that application process and be eligible. Luther, do you have anything to add to that?
I will also say some government funded organizations that are doing grant making for specific projects might require you to have an LLC or a business license. And so, which is also a good thing to have. Even I teach at Hughes House, and we're required to have a business type of thing. And so it's not necessarily like all grants or a specific grant that ask for that, but I do know some government funded programs and orgs that require you to apply for a grant for a project do ask you to have a business license or an LLC. So it just depends on the organization and also the grant that you're applying for, which of course means to look at the guidelines, of course.
So, and somebody just said, what is a fiscal sponsorship? Fiscal sponsorship basically refers to the practice of a nonprofit organization offering their legal and tax exempt status to a group or an individual in the case of a project, or if folks are trying to engage in activities like related to art making and they need that representation for their legal and tax exempt, they need that legal support and that tax exempt status. That would be an example of fiscal sponsorship. Sorry, I don't have the exact definition in front of me. Nicole, do you have a definition?
Like a formal, it's basically a 501c3 is using their tax status as an umbrella for, basically what you said.
Okay. Great.
And you need that to be able to fundraise. That's really, if you don't have that, that's a problem.
Right. Well, it's 3 o'clock. Thank you so much to everyone for being here with us today. I learned a lot, and I hope that you did as well. I hope that you came away from our time together feeling more empowered, feeling more ready and resilient. I'm not trying to minimize the fact that this is a challenging time right now, and we hope that you feel like Luther and myself and the rest of our team at Artist Trust, we're here for you. We hope that you think of us if you need resources or have questions about what might be next for you. So like Luther mentioned at the beginning of our time today, or maybe I mentioned it, this is the final workshop in a series called Readiness and Resilience that we have been really fortunate to pursue this past year in partnership with CERF Plus, which is an awesome resource for artists. CERF Plus, look them up if you aren't already familiar with them. And some of that, the work that we've done with them is also being funded by the Andrew W. Mellon Foundation, which we're extremely grateful for. We appreciate you, and we hope that this helped even in any small way possible. Again, this workshop was recorded, but we will tweak it a little bit to make it the right fit for our online audience, and we'll take out any of our sort of private discussion that we had. And just thank you so much to each of you for being here.